If your hydrangea keeps producing a few sad blooms and then just stops, you're probably making 7 specific mistakes. And here's the frustrating part: most of the advice you've already tried online is exactly why your plant keeps struggling. Almost nobody talks about this, but hydrangeas aren't actually hard to grow. They're just widely misunderstood. Every tip you've heard about sun, water, and fertilizer might be quietly working against you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why your hydrangea is underperforming and exactly how to fix it. For good. Let's start with the mistake almost every beginner makes first. Secret 1: the watering mistake that's quietly killing your blooms. You've probably heard that hydrangeas love water, so more must be better. It sounds logical, but that's exactly why so many hydrangeas rot from the inside out. Here's what actually happens. Hydrangea roots don't drink water directly from puddles sitting at the surface. They chase moisture deeper into the soil, like explorers searching for a hidden spring. When you water a little bit every day, the roots never have a reason to travel down. They stay lazy, shallow, and weak right where the soil dries out fastest. Then a hot afternoon hits. Those giant leaves act like evaporation panels, releasing moisture into the air by the gallon. With no deep roots to pull from, the plant panics. The solution? Water deeply, but less often enough to soak 6 to 8 inches down, then let the top few inches dry before watering again. Why does this work? It forces the roots to grow downward, chasing that deep moisture. And deeper roots mean a plant that can survive heat waves without collapsing. The reward: a hydrangea that's dramatically more drought tolerant, with a root system strong enough to fuel bloom after bloom. But water isn't the biggest problem. The next mistake is one almost nobody realizes they're making, and it's happening right beneath the surface. Secret 2: the soil secret nobody talks about. Most people think soil is just dirt that holds the plant up. What actually happens underground is closer to a living factory. Here's where things get interesting. Hydrangeas are picky about something most gardeners have never even tested: soil pH, how acidic or alkaline the ground is. This single number decides which nutrients the roots can actually absorb. Think of soil like a locked pantry. The nutrients are sitting right there, but if the pH is wrong, the door won't open. Your hydrangea could be surrounded by food and still be starving. This is also the secret behind color-changing hydrangeas. Acidic soil unlocks aluminum, which turns blooms blue. Alkaline soil locks it away, and you get pink. Same plant, different chemistry. The fix is simple. Test your soil pH with an inexpensive kit, then adjust gradually: garden sulfur to lower it, garden lime to raise it. Do this slowly, over weeks, not all at once. Why does this work? Because you're not feeding the plant more, you're finally unlocking what was already there. The reward: richer color, stronger blooms, and a plant that finally stops looking hungry. Now here's a mistake that's even worse than bad soil, because it happens in broad daylight, and you've been told it's a good thing. Secret 3: the sunlight myth. Most gardeners think more sun equals more flowers. It sounds like common sense, but that's actually backwards for most hydrangea varieties. Here's what's really happening. Those big, beautiful leaves are like giant solar panels, but also giant evaporation panels. In direct afternoon sun, the plant loses water faster than the roots can resupply it. The flowers, which take enormous energy to build, get sacrificed first. The plant literally shuts down bloom production to survive. This is where things get interesting. Hydrangeas actually perform best with morning sun and afternoon shade. Morning light powers photosynthesis without the brutal heat that triggers water stress. The solution: if your hydrangea sits in full, scorching afternoon sun, consider relocating it or planting something taller nearby to cast afternoon shade. Why this works: you're giving the plant enough light to produce energy without pushing it into survival mode. The reward: bigger, more consistent blooms, because the plant is finally investing energy into flowers instead of just staying alive. But even with perfect sun and water, there's a trap waiting in almost every garden shed, and it might be the reason your hydrangea has leaves but no flowers at all. Secret for the fertilizer trap. Most people think if a plant looks weak, you feed it more fertilizer. It sounds logical, but that's exactly why some hydrangeas grow huge and lush and never bloom. Here's the science. Made simple. Fertilizers are usually labeled with 3 numbers: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Nitrogen builds leaves and stems. Phosphorus builds flowers and roots. When you dump on high nitrogen fertilizer, you're basically telling the plant, grow more leaves, not grow more flowers. Picture it like a factory told to build more walls. Instead of more products, the plant gets bigger. But the thing you actually wanted, the blooms, never show up. The solution: switch to a fertilizer formulated for blooming plants, lower in nitrogen and higher in phosphorus, applied in early spring and once after the first bloom cycle. Then stop overfeeding stresses the plant just as much as underfeeding. Why this works: you're directing the plant's limited energy toward flowers instead of endless foliage. The reward: a plant that finally puts its effort where you want it into blooms, not just leaves. Now let's talk about the mistake that ruins next year's flowers before they even have a chance to form. Secret 5: the pruning time bomb. You've probably heard that pruning in fall or early spring cleans up the plant and prepares it for the season. But for most hydrangeas, that's the single most destructive thing you can do. Here's why. Many hydrangea varieties don't grow flower buds on new stems. They form them on old wood, the stems that grew last year sometime in late summer, months before winter even arrives. Those buds sit there quietly all winter, waiting. If you prune in fall or early spring, thinking you're tidying up, you're actually cutting off next year's flowers before they ever open. It's like clipping the wick off a candle you haven't lit yet. The solution: prune spent blooms right after they fade in summer, never in fall, never in early spring. If you're unsure of your variety, wait until you see new growth emerge in spring, then only trim the parts that are clearly dead. Why this works: it protects the old wood carrying next season's hidden buds. The reward: a plant that finally blooms reliably, year after year, instead of mysteriously skipping seasons. This next secret surprises almost everyone because it's not about the plant at all. It's about what's happening beneath it. Secret 6: the root problem. You can't see. Most gardeners obsess over what's above the soil: the leaves, the flowers, the color. But the real story is happening somewhere you can't see at all. Roots act like underground straws, and mulch is what protects that entire system. Bare soil around a hydrangea heats up fast in summer and swings wildly in temperature, which stresses those shallow feeder roots, the ones responsible for actually pulling in water and nutrients. A 2 to 3 inch layer of mulch works like an insulating blanket. It keeps soil temperature stable, locks in moisture so you're not fighting evaporation constantly, and slowly breaks down to feed the soil ecosystem. The solution: mulch generously around the base, but keep it a few inches away from the actual stem so you don't trap moisture against the plant and invite rot. Why this works: stable soil conditions mean the roots stop fighting for survival and start focusing on growth. The reward: stronger roots, steadier blooms, and a plant that handles both drought and cold far better than before. And now, the final secret, the one that ties every other mistake together. Secret 7: the root of all the other problems: variety confusion. Here's what almost nobody realizes. Half of these mistakes aren't really about technique at all. They're about not knowing which hydrangea you actually have. Most people think all hydrangeas behave the same way. But that's exactly why so much advice online contradicts itself, because one variety blooms on old wood, another blooms on new wood, and a third blooms on both. What's a bloom-saving tip for one type can be bloom-destroying for another. Think of it like giving the same instructions to 3 completely different animals and expecting the same result. The solution: identify your specific hydrangea variety. A quick photo search or a tag from the nursery usually tells you before applying any pruning or fertilizing advice. Why this works? Every technique in this video only works when it's matched to the right variety. The reward: no more guessing, no more contradictory advice. Just a clear plan built for the exact plant in your yard. So let's bring this together. If your hydrangea has lush leaves but barely any flowers, that's likely secret 4, too much nitrogen. If the blooms disappeared entirely one year, check secret 5, you probably pruned away old wood at the wrong time. If the leaves wilt every hot afternoon, no matter how much you water, that's secret 1 and secret 3 working against each other, shallow roots meeting harsh sun. If the color looks dull or the growth looks weak despite regular feeding, go back to secret 2. Your soil chemistry might be locking nutrients away. Every symptom your hydrangea shows you is actually a clue. Once you know what to look for, you're not guessing anymore, you're diagnosing. Hydrangeas don't fail because they're difficult. They fail because the advice most people follow was never built for how these plants actually work. Now you know the science behind all 7 secrets, and more importantly, you know why each one works. So tell me in the comments, which one of these 7 mistakes surprised you the most? I read every comment, and I'd love to know which secret is going to change your garden this season. And if you want more science-backed gardening tips that actually work, hit subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from.